Check, check. All right, sound is good. How about the video? Is the video good? Let's give this a try. Moment of truth. All right, looks good. Sounds good. Welcome everyone to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. We are on the verge of neutrality greed for the stock market and crypto. Very exciting recently. Since the government shutdown, we've been bullish, of course. And I've seen a number of charts out there showing that back in 2018, when the government shut down, that was also marking the bottom as well. So we have been in this downtrend of greed to fear, and in my opinion, this is a break of that trend. By the way, happy Friday. Hope you all are doing well. Have good plans for this Friday and weekend. Let's go over to crypto seasonality. I think we need to talk about this because we just printed a positive September. Now, one of the reasons I think this is important is last year we had a rate cut cycle of 25 basis points. Talked about this in the stock video if you watched that. And when we've had 25 basis point rate cuts, the market does positively. Now, last year, if you remember, the Fed started with 50, and then they paused, and then they did a couple 25. So it's an average of 25 basis points, and they started with 25 basis points again recently. Even the federal chairman, Jerome Powell, said, when asked why didn't they do 50, he said, we would not do 50 unless it's an emergency situation, which we can see highlighted in red in historical data as well. So if we're not going to see 50 as long as Jerome Powell's in charge, I do think that is positive for the markets overall. One of the other important things that I highlighted in the stock video is that the S&P Shiller P ratio just hit 40. The last time we saw Shiller P ratio hit 40 was January of 1999. That's right, when we were really starting to get into the top of the dot-com bubble, we got a Shiller P for the S&P 500 over 40. Now, in the stock market video, I'll give you the TLDR version, and we had another 25% to go up in the S&P and about another 400 days, give or take, to around where that topping period was. So this time around, AI bubble, .com bubble, we had that pullback as well with the tariff situation down to the 100-week moving average, but we are now bullish. Going over to Bitcoin, I do want to overlay the rate cut cycle that I talked about last year. This is the U.S. INTR, the U.S. interest rates. And when we zoom out a little bit, let's go back to last year of 2024. By the way, if you're in the comment section or you're here watching the video live, if you have any requests for cryptos to look at, you can comment on below. Even if you want me to talk about any crypto technical analysis for next week, you can comment that, not in the live chat if you're watching a replay, but you can comment that in the other section after the video is done. And I have been recently making YouTube shorts talking about current price action as well as price targets for different cryptos. So if you're interested in me doing that, just leave a comment. I'd be happy to share my 2 cents with you. Anyways, let's take a look at this date here. September 24, right around the middle of September last year, the Fed cut rates. Now they cut by 50. Again, they paused. So that was a 25 basis point average, and then 25 basis point cuts again. Just as we showed in the almanac monthly data here, we see that September onward was pretty bullish, even through January. And you can see that reflected in the chart that by January, Bitcoin made a top of 108K. So you can go by the middle of September when it was around 60,000, okay, from this rate cutting cycle, all the way up to 110K. Bitcoin went up about 50,000 points. All right. Now, percentage wise, it went up about, that's December. Let's go here. It went up about 80 some percent. Right. So I've been long making the argument, even before this rate cut data came out, that, should we see something similar? Let's get rid of this here. Let's clean up the chart a little. That should we get something similar to prior cycle tops, that maybe, let's go to the middle of September here. Where was the middle of September? Right around here. That, if we saw something about an 80% move up, similar to last year, that we might be hitting a topping target somewhere around 200K. Now, I've long made the argument, you can go back to some of my oldest videos, that 155K would be the minimum base case scenario for us to have a Bitcoin cycle top and alt season, all this and that, right? I did a video this week on phase 3, which we are not in, and I showed you the data as to why that is. We are in phase 2 right now, but in order to get to alt season, Bitcoin has to top for the cycle. When Bitcoin has topped in prior cycles, Bitcoin then rotates for the next 2 to 4 weeks, and that's when you see altcoins explode. That's when there's euphoria in the markets, people getting rich out of nowhere because their cryptos inside of a month did a 5x, 10x, 20x, whatever. That's when this happens. It happens from the spike of Bitcoin. I'll get into some of that data later in this video. So I've long made the argument that this area around 180K to 210K would be an area for a top. We have the rate cut cycle data that agrees with that. We also have other data. Let's go over to the weekly and just zoom out, make it look cleaner. We have our log regression data that agrees with this. Let's add this on. Okay, you can see where the Bitcoin cycle topped. This was alt season right in here. Okay, 2017 also topped in the upper band of this log regression. That same area is right around 175 to 210K, just as I explained to you. All right. So rate cut data shows that could be a possibility. Our log regression shows this could be a possibility. Again, I think, if it was a weaker cycle top, 155K is my base case scenario. Maybe we get rejected there and see a cycle top, whatever. But if we truly go euphoric, I am still eyeing this area. I still think there's room to run. Now, there's other indicators that agree with this as well. We could take a look at the pi cycle. Maybe you've heard of the pi cycle. It's been triggered in the last couple cycle tops when the lower yellow moving average moves above the orange. That is the pi cycle top. Sometimes Bitcoin, the last 2 cycles, this one as well, has had a mid-cycle top right to that moving average. Okay, we had that in March 24 and June, July 2019. But again, when the yellow moving average crosses the orange, this was the cycle top. That was alt season. Now, where is that pi cycle moving average? It is right up here at around the upper area of this log regression. Now, are we going to get a pi cycle to trigger? Well, if so, then our log regression is going to be a little broken, including our fib. And the rate cut cycle, just by equal comparisons, will show that, or isn't showing that, this move could be much higher. Now, last cycle, the Bitcoin top, we can go high to low here, all right, only got kind of to, it is right in between the 3618 4236 extension, okay? We had a top of 64K before alt season and 69K, all right? Every cycle, Bitcoin hits a lower fib extension. Now, we've had inflation, which has devalued our dollars in the last 5 years by about 25% overall. So I am of the mind that because that inflation factor, because our dollars being worth less, that means that Bitcoin can also be worth more. There is a rumor, I've seen some videos and theories out there that the reason the government is buying Bitcoin and raising their debt is because if they buy Bitcoin, which is non-inflationary, even with their debt going up, if Bitcoin pumps, they can use those profits from Bitcoin to pay down the national debt. Don't know if that's true, but that's been a theory working its way around the interweb. So we have a couple reasons to believe that this could be a topping area. Let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance, and let's take off these indicators, if we will. And last few weeks, we talked about how the 618 area, okay, we're drawing a Fibonacci retracement, high to low. The Fib retracement is basically an indicator for the golden ratios that are out there in the universe. All right, so type in Fibonacci on Google, and you can get way more information than I'm willing to give you right now. But we hit the 618 Fib. Okay, as well as the 100-week moving average. When this is going down, that's when money is rotating from Bitcoin into Ethereum, into altcoins. Again, I've said many times over the course of the last month or so, we are in phase 2. We'll talk about Ethereum here in a few minutes. But hitting these areas of support, it made sense for Bitcoin dominance to have a turnaround or a bounce here. And we have 60% right around where the 20 and the 50-week moving averages are. Now, there's other indicators that agree with this as well. I was playing with some of these before. The bull market support band also agrees with this. So, there's a lot of things to show. The 50-week being under that is bearish. Being under the bull market support band is, of course, bearish because it's not bullish. It's not above it. You can see how even Bitcoin dominance, it was riding up that bull market support band, did a little flash underneath it. But again, the 50-week moving average is a good dividing line between being bullish and bearish. Continued to go up. Once it broke through, got under the 50, we are now bearish on both metrics. So getting under this 618 is truly important to make the argument that we are getting towards this phase 3 and eventually phase 4, which is when Bitcoin tops. Now, I talked about being in phase 2, so let's go and take a look at that. We're going to compare Ethereum to Bitcoin. And by the way, if you're wondering, what does this all mean? Bitcoin dominance, ETH Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance at 59 right now. It is 59%. 59% of all money in crypto is in Bitcoin. You can take a look at market cap, and you can see that Bitcoin, it has a $2.5 trillion market cap. If Bitcoin gets to 155K, it'll have around a $3 trillion market cap. If Bitcoin gets to 200K, it will have a $4 trillion market cap, around that number. Right now, the top stock in the world, Nvidia, is over $4 trillion, just for perspective. And Microsoft and Apple, I think, are just a shade under 4 at the moment. So right now, the market cap of Bitcoin, that $2.5 trillion, takes up 59% of the overall crypto market share. I hope that makes sense. When we take Ethereum's market cap of 500, let's just round up, 550 billion, and divide it into 2.5 trillion, you get a percentage of 22. 22% is a comparison or the ratio of Ethereum compared to Bitcoin. Now, after ETH Bitcoin bottomed, it hit some resistance as well as this bull market support band. We can get rid of that, just make things cleaner. I don't think it's really adding anything that isn't already here. But once it was getting to this area of this 382 fib, we could see that drawn from high to low. The 382 fib is an area that's important for an asset to get above because when you are below it, oftentimes you can put in new lower lows, or it's still a possibility. So not only did Ethereum Bitcoin get above that 382, we also got above the 50-week moving average, this orange moving average, okay? Again, being above the 50-week moving average is bullish. Being above the 382 is also bullish. But we hit two areas of resistance. The 0.5, the 100-week moving average, I drew the squiggly line all the way back here. Pat myself on the back, I guess, JK. But I made the argument that, we might hit some resistance here. Maybe retest this breakout area, the 382 and the 50-week, at around 0.2. So, Ethereum compared to Bitcoin might lose a little steam. And that doesn't mean Ethereum has to do bad, but it would mean that Bitcoin, or it could mean that Bitcoin is doing much better compared to Ethereum. So maybe we get that for a few more weeks. And then hitting this area, I'm hoping for a bounce. We have that 200 week moving average. And I did draw this squiggly line up to the 200 because we've hit that before. Okay. Getting under the 200, there's been a moving average ETH Bitcoin has honored in the past. So I am assuming that that could be an area we hit some resistance, get support off the 0.5 where we've recently had resistance, and then blast off into alt season. Now, this area of around 0.3, 30% of ETH Bitcoin or ETH Bitcoin comparison, that has truly been when we've been in alt season in the past. So this has been right as Ethereum's really blasting off against Bitcoin. I can overlay an Ethereum chart and it'll show ETH topping somewhere over here and Bitcoin going down. We can even just add Bitcoin and show how Bitcoin tops before alt season takes off. Again, I feel like I have to say this quite often. People are saying there's no alt season. Well, I'm here to tell you we cannot have an alt season until Bitcoin tops. The last two cycles, we needed Bitcoin to finish topping for the cycle before we had the rotation into alts. And the way I conceptualize that is once Bitcoin is too expensive to keep buying, whales, large money, they see all these cheap alts and they're like, you know what? We're going to rotate into these large caps, even ETH, all these low cap alts. And retail, they're going to FOMO in. It's extreme greed. They're not going to want to miss it. And after we pump it, retail will pump us even more. And then we'll exit out after getting a little bit more of a pump. That is my theory. And I think it's a good one on how the whales, they start the rotation. And then we, retail, dumb money, we follow. So if you are positioned early, you could benefit if your altcoins are chosen. So anyways, you see right here, Bitcoin tops before ETH moves up. Okay. And last cycle, Bitcoin topped. Remember, this is the first of the double top before ETH pumped up. Now, I can show you ETH overlaid on this chart as well. Let's take a look at that Ethereum. Here we go. You can see Ethereum spiking with the ETH Bitcoin chart. Well, of course it would. Of course it would spike with it. We can even go to Bitcoin dominance to show this as well. As dominance goes down, we have that rotation into our altcoins. Ethereum can really pump from those moments. Again, this was this last cycle that concluded in May of 21 with that alt season. ETH pumps after that happens. So I think, even just showing it the other way around is important too. And actually, let's overlay Bitcoin here for a moment. All right, so we have Bitcoin here. Again, Bitcoin from the moment it topped last cycle. Let's go to the daily. I want to show you even more accurately. This was in 2021, all right? So here was the ETH top somewhere around 4,000. The wick got up to 4,400, right? Yes, it went to 5K, but this is alt season. Here's where Bitcoin topped. Look at the price ETH was at the time, 2,100, okay? ETH was at 2,100. And from that Bitcoin top, that rotation, ETH dang near did a 2X. All right, we can go to 2017 and show the exact same thing pretty much. From that 2017 Bitcoin top in mid-December, look at where ETH was. Around, just a little under 700, okay, 680, 700, whatever. By the time Bitcoin was rotating, okay, ETH dang near did a 2X, almost to 1,400. So again, I think this chart is worth memorizing or, taking a screenshot and just knowing we are in phase 2. We are not in phase 3. We are not in phase 4. That comes later. We need Bitcoin to top. Now, a few days ago, I did a video on phase 3. Are we in phase 3? I asked that question. And going over to this chart right here, what is phase 3? Phase 3 is large caps, okay? I asked the question, phase 3, are we pumping the large caps overall? All right, so as far as what I describe as the large caps, we're not talking about Ethereum, of course, because Ethereum, that is what we describe as phase 2. Phase 3 is the other large caps around the top 10, like your Ripple, your XRP, your Binance coin. Tether is a stable coin. It always has a value of $1. Okay, your Solana, your Doge, your Tron, your Cardano. All right. Now, we have a couple charts that are important to look at as far as the altcoin market. There's total 3. All right. Total 3 is the total market cap excluding Bitcoin and ETH. All right. So that gets rid of Bitcoin and ETH. Great. We also have others, which is the total market cap excluding, you can see it right there, excluding the top 10. So the total market cap for others is at 323 billion. Again, that's excluding the top 10. So everything under Cardano is included in others. Total 3 is everything under Ethereum. So I thought there's a way to look at all these large caps together, and we could go, I'll put this in brackets, total 3, again, that's everything outside of Bitcoin and ETH, minus others, because that's everything outside the top 10. And then we have to get rid of our stable coins. So our stable coins are, of course, Tether and USDC. So we have to get rid of USDC and USDT. So we got rid of Tether. Let's get rid of our other stable coin. All right, so that's all the large caps, and we're going to divide that, not question it, divide that by Bitcoin. Okay, so before we did ETH Bitcoin, as you guys saw, and ETH Bitcoin showed us we are in phase 2. Now we are measuring phase 3, the large caps, which again, I'm just going to include here XRP, Binance Coin, Solana, Doge, Tron, and Cardano. All right, that is what we're looking at, the true large cap market. And what we see is that the large caps have not broke out. In my opinion, we are not in phase 3. Let's go to the weekly. All right. Now, this area of support has shown it is resistance. And oddly enough, I think if we go to the monthly, the monthly even shows that the 50 month moving average has been a good area of resistance as well. And by the way, I have on Heikin-Ashi candles, which in my opinion, are better because they show the trend. Now let's go to the weekly again, all right? You can take a look. The 200-week moving average is even right there. And right now, I mean, could this be an initial bullish sign that the 200-week is support? It could be. But in my opinion, we have these spikes here that moved up above the 200-week. Again, the 50-month showed that we haven't broken out yet, and we have this area of support. So I said, you know what? Maybe we get a little bit above the 200-week, but let's first get above this 0.26. If the large caps, everything between total 3 and others, and minus the stable coins, if we get above this 0.26, make that area in the support, I think we have started phase 3. Right? We can also draw a Fibonacci retracement, high to low. I wonder what this will show us, high to low. Let's make sure our fib is on log. Well, wouldn't you know it? Remember what I said about the 3A2. Let's get rid of the moving average here for a moment. I made the argument that the 3A2, when you're underneath it, you could still technically put in new lower lows. It's one of the areas for being bullish and not bearish, not putting in new lower lows. Now, our large cap comparison, we have been making higher lows, great. We hit resistance there right around this trend line, great. But the 3A2 is right at that trend line as well, around 0.27. So whether you want to draw a fib, if you want to draw a trend line connecting these tops, if you want to take a look at the 50-month moving average, there are multiple data points to show, there's that 50-month moving average, there's multiple data points to show that this is the range we need to get through. The gap between 24% and let's just say 27% is the area we have to get through in order to say we are in phase 3. Once we are above that 0.26, 0.27 area, and that is support, then we are in phase 3. So we are not there yet. Therefore, we are not in alt season yet. I still think we can get good deals out there on different alts. And this is the part of the video where I think I'll go into some altcoins, and if you have any requests, comment them below. But let's take a look at some of those large cap altcoins. All right, let's take a look at XRP. All right, XRP still at that 1618 fib at around $3. All right, it's between the 20-week moving average and that 1618 fib. Let's take a look at the daily. Got down to the 100-day. All right, and we're making, I'd say, series of lower highs, lower lows, but it does look to be wedging out. Now, what I thought was interesting is if we take a look at the Binance chart, all right, it doesn't go back the full length of XRP, but if we go from the prior high in 21 to the low, we're right at the 1618. All right, great. But you know what's interesting to me is if we take a look at XRP US dollar, the chart that does go all the way back and includes the 2017 top. Let's zoom way in here. Okay, this is the 2017 top. No, it's hard to see. I apologize. Just a little bit over $3. I want to say it's like $3.50, something like that. Let's go to the daily. All right, I have to kind of scroll back a little slowly here just to get to that top. Here we go. Why is it stretching out like that? Whatever. So that top, we've pretty much marked it in there, okay? Now let's just zoom way out here. When we include that 2017 top, we truly haven't broken out yet. In fact, you can see we've only wicked to that top. Now, when it's only wicks and not candle bodies, we have not truly broken out. However, if we take a look at the 1618 fib extension for this whole chart, you know, we have price targets of $5.67 and $9.10 at the 2618. So XRP, you know, I've made the argument in prior videos, and XRP cult members say, you know, that market cap is not a real thing. They don't believe in it. You know, I've said XRP is not going to $100. That doesn't make any sense. Its market cap isn't going to, you know, be the largest stock of the world or anything like that. You know, but if XRP from right now, let's say it goes to $9, all right? Because remember, it's at $3. If it goes to the 2618, we're doing a 3x. Simple math. A 3x of 182 billion would be around what, 540 billion? Sure, maybe the top altcoin outside of Ethereum can get to 540 billion. Maybe, I don't know. Let's go through some other large caps. So XRP, you know, the number one of the phase 3 large caps, it's knocking on the door. All right, it's knocking on the door. Let's go to Binance Coin. How's our second biggest large cap looking? All right, let's make sure we pick the best Binance one. Let's do this one. Cool, I charted it. Well, this one's not just knocking on the door, but it is in all-time high territory. Binance Coin moving towards its 2618 of 1478. So Binance Coin, it is moving up. All right, so that's 2 for 2 so far as the phase 3 large cap coins. XRP, the number one altcoin, right at the door for all-time highs, and Binance Coin. It is in all-time highs. How about Solana? Solana's next. Solana has really been growing this cycle. Solana US dollar, did I chart the... Okay, I did chart the Coinbase one, good. Solana right at the door for the all-time highs, okay? Got close here, came down to probably the 888 fib if I had to guess. Let's take our fib off log scale. I would assume that's the 888. Yeah, came down to the 888. Not even quite, more like the 100-day moving average. All right, so we could take a look at the fib extensions again here. So it's riding the moving average up. If Solana breaks out soon, again, this one's knocking on the door. I'm talking about a $414 Solana at its 1618. All right, that's a little under a 2x. You know, if it did 246, that'd be about 700. This is a little under a 3x. It would be at the 2618 at 665. Okay, and a 3x, you know, you just take 3 times the market cap. That'd be 390 billion. Can Solana get to 390 billion and 3x from here? All right. So far, I'd say for phase 3, okay, we're 3 for 3. We're either knocking on the door or we are in all-time high range. How about Dogecoin? Now, I've long made the argument Dogecoin is, out of all the large caps, is the one altcoin I'm worried about the most as far as underperforming. I could be wrong, right? I've been wrong about Doge before. I remember me and a gym buddy in 2017, the summer, fall of 2017, we were laughing at this thing and we could have been millionaires if we took it seriously. But in my defense, how many of us took it seriously? But anyways, crypto's ironic. It humbles you. If something seems really stupid, maybe it's worth investing into. I don't know. But how is Dogecoin doing? Is Doge knocking on the door? Is it doing as well as Solana, Binance, XRP? Simple answer is no. However, Doge is right at the 618 to 65. That is your golden pocket, right? You can see it bounce off the 100, the 200 kind of. It's right at the 618. So Doge is even moving up. You see a little bit of a red candle there. Maybe it'll retest that 50-week at around 21.5 cents. If so, you like Doge, that might be an area. If it gets to the 0.5, around 19 cents, that'd be the next good fib area. We were talking about, Doge being a deal at 14 cents. Way back here, next area, I'd say if we did get a downturn, 19 cents if you like Doge. But is Doge knocking on the door? No, it is not. It simply isn't. Now, it could get going, but, where would your price targets be for Doge? All right, as far as areas. I did add on the 1.236. That is there at 90 cents. That'd be a little over a 3x from here. And with Doge having a market cap of 40 billion, let's just round up, a 3x would be 120 billion, right? It would be a little bit more than that by the time of 3x, because a 3x truly would be around, let's see, like 78 cents, something like that. So, if it got up to 90 cents, yeah, you're probably looking like 130 billion. I'm kind of guesstimating here. So can Doge get above $100 billion market cap? Maybe. Who knows? If all of a sudden good news is coming out about Elon, sure, why not? I am suspect of that. Now let's go to Tron. How is Tron doing? All right. So right now, as far as keeping track, let's stay on task of the phase 3 large cap altcoins. All right, we were 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3. We're 3 out of 4 so far. Again, we skipped over the stable coins that keep a value of $1. All right, let's go to Tron. Now, Tron, in my opinion, is the most sketchy of the top large caps as far as the next bear market's concerned. Let me say that again, or in a different way. I think Tron can do well this cycle, but after the cycle tops, I would be very worried about this one. If you are familiar with the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX situation that put in the final nail in the coffin for crypto last cycle, what sent it down to 15K, Tron is my number one suspect for that. You can go down a rabbit hole researching Justin Sun. I think Justin Sun's kind of like the Chinese Sam Bankman-Fried. This would be one I would not want to be in as far as the next bear market, all right? It'd be my number one candidate of a large cap crypto to implode on itself. I could be wrong, but how is Tron doing? Let's put my bias aside and let's just take a look at Tron, all right? Remember, we're 3 out of 4. Well, look at this, Tron. It is doing very well since this 2021 top. It sold from that 2618. It spiked to it at around 40 cents, and let's scooch out here. Let's extend this fib. Okay. Now, we don't need this giant rainbow on your screen, so let's turn that down. All right. But we spiked up here. Okay. Flash sell. Tron is riding back up to that 40 cent level at the 236. I think we're 4 for 5. We are 80% so far for large caps, doing very well, saying, hey, we're close to being bullish. The only one so far that isn't is Doge, right? Let's go to the last one. Again, we're 4 for 5. Will we be 5 of 6? Will we be 4 of 6? So will we be 2/3, like 66%? Let's take a look. How is Cardano looking? Well, Cardano kind of around where Doge is at, all right? Well, Doge was at its 618. Cardano is at its 0.5. So out of all the large cap coins, it would make sense that the lowest market cap of the large caps that I'm looking at wouldn't quite be as high a value. Now, Cardano, it's an older coin. It's a 2017 coin. Is this one going to do as well as some of the others? I don't know. We'll see. Do keep in mind last cycle, it's between a range of 3 to 10 cents, and then it went up to $3. So 10 cents to $3, that was a nice 30x. 3 cents to $3, that's obviously 100x right there. Okay, 3 to 30 cents, that's a 10x. 30 cents to $3, that's another 10x. So it did 100x last cycle. We've been in a range of, let's just say a quarter, 24 cents to, I'll just say right where we're at right now, like 80 cents. So 24 to 80 cents. Will we do another 100x from the bottom here? I don't think so. I think, kind of like the log regression shows, each cycle gets a little bit weaker. So I'd temper expectations. But if you're looking for a possible large cap deal or discount, I'd say maybe Cardano would be one to look at. Now, it's got good support here at the 0.5 fib. Hit the 200, it's above the fib. I think this one, as far as value goes, shows the best value of all the top altcoins. All right. Will it perform as well? I don't know. We'll see. But we have Tron into new all-time high territory, or close to that 2618. Doge, it's at 618, but that was one that it's not a new all-time high area. Solana on the ceiling all-time high, Binance an all-time high, XRP on the door, the ceiling of all-time high. So I think we are 4 for 6, shooting 2 out of 3, 66% for our large caps. We are close, or on the verge of possibly starting phase 3. But again, that's what the chart showed, is that we were right at that resistance area. So don't forget how we got that is we did total 3 minus others minus USDC minus USDT. All right, these are all the large caps we just looked at divided by Bitcoin. All right, and that's what showed us how we are right at this area. All right, even going to the monthly, we are right on the cusp of large caps moving very bullish. All right, we had the fib, we had the trend line. All right, let's make sure our fib is on log right there. There we go. On log, cool. We have the fib. You could draw a trend line here, whatever. That 0.26, 0.27 area is the area to watch for. All right. Anyways, let's get to some of your comments. I will be running through various altcoin analysis, like I said. So if you have any requests for cryptos, comment them below. But otherwise, I'm going to run through some technical analysis on Bitcoin mining stocks. I'm going to run through TA on various altcoins. Okay, we talked about the top 10 ones. I'll get into Chainlink, AVAX, and some others as well. But if you have any comments, put them below. Charles Kelly, what's up, man? Please look at Tesla. So Charles, I don't know if you saw the stock video I did earlier. Jason, good afternoon to you. Tesla, man, that is looking very good for you. So I hope Tesla is treating you well. What we looked at with Tesla is how it was riding that 50-week moving average up quite nicely. Okay, the 200-day as well. Had this wedge pattern, broke out of it, and once it did, okay, it was just riding those daily moving averages up. Now, as far as Tesla is concerned, it hit this micro. I hope you see this high to low. Actually, we have to fix that fib here. Sorry, it is off log scale. I want to give you correct data. All right, here we go. So it hit that micro 888 fib, and it's coming down to that 786, right, at around 410. But you can see that wick. It is perfectly hitting that 20-day, which is crazy. People bought that up immediately where the 20 days. That's just crazy. And that's, in my opinion, that's got to be algorithms buying that up, because, is there any human that knows exactly where the 20 days is going to be each and every day? That is crazy, though. And we also have Tesla's former all-time high from 21 right at this level, too. So keep an eye on that gray line, the 20-day, that former all-time high. The micro 786, 410 to 415 is this area where if we truly get rejected by here, that I'd be taking a look at. But we're close to the all-time highs for Tesla. And let's put our fib back off log scale. If Tesla, that's the one fib. That's the very large one. Let's go to the micro fib and take that one off log scale. Here we go. So I want to take a look at 2 price targets for you as far as where Tesla can go if it can break out. So we have the macro 1618 here at 607. We have this massive channel Tesla's been in, higher highs, higher lows. We also have the micro 1618 touching that channel at 660. So if Tesla gets between 607 and 660, and I think the channel especially, and the micro fib, if it gets to 670 or 660, sorry, I think that is going to be profit-taking areas. Now, if it gets above that, I mean, good night. That would be crazy for Tesla to break out of there. You know, we have both macro 2618s right at around 920 to 930. So, what would that be as far as market cap? That'd be over 2x. That'd be around 3 trillion. Can Tesla get to 3 trillion market cap? I don't know. If it broke out of the channel, that's what I'd be looking at. And I would say that would absolutely have to be a top. Me personally, I wouldn't have the guts to stay in. I would be selling by 660. That's me. I'm not telling you what to do, though. Hope that helps. Jason likes Solana. Let's go. Solana, we just talked about it, how it's right on the ceiling of former all-time highs. It's knocking on the door. It's knocking on the door. So I think if Solana starts to do well, that's going to bode very well for everything crypto. And I do wonder, how is this going to look for the Solana meme coins, the gamble coins that did so well in 24? Is that going to be bullish for them? Not my cup of tea personally, but if Solana starts getting to 414, 665, or even higher, that'd be crazy. Again, could we see a $300 to $400 billion Solana? Maybe. Jason, I hold some Matic that is about to go through some type of conversion and upgrade. Any thoughts if this will add bullish value? I don't want to misspeak or miseducate you. As far as what I remember for Matic, it's Polygon Matic, right? Matic had some trouble the last couple of years. And, okay, it's still at a $2 billion market cap. Price not tracked, right? Polygon, previously Matic, $2.5 billion, the number 4. So we have to type in Polygon. It went through some recent troubles, and I'm not sure as to why. I remember people talking about it. I have a friend who owned some, who is buying some, and this would have to be it. Yeah, Polygon, Paul, same ticker. All right, so let's take a look at this. I don't want to tell you why it went down. I know there was like some big bits of bearish news, but let's take a look at the chart, see what I can offer you. I'm not going to chart this wick over here when it came out. I don't know what or if any of that's accurate. Sometimes those wicks I don't know why they're there. Sometimes if you track the actual wick, it's like that stock or crypto was never that price. Anyways, remember what I said about the 382. The 382, as long as you're underneath it, you're still technically bearish. You can still technically put in new lower lows. We draw a fib high to low, and Polygon, formerly Matic. Sorry, let me get some water. Apologize if that did any of that ASMR sounds. I personally hate that stuff, but whatever. Anyways, what do we see here? Well, I don't know if you guys see it, but I'm just going to draw it. I love to draw channels anytime I can see them. Do you guys see the channel right there? It's not perfect by any stretch, okay, but whether we're including wicks or not, we have a series of higher highs, higher lows. We're in this channel, right? I'm just showing you how I chart, and this is the first time I'm looking at this chart or Matic chart in a long time. So I'm digesting it right here with you. So the 382 being under it is technically bearish, but however, when we got rejected, we came down to this area of higher lows, which also was the 236, and we had a nice bounce. This is a good area of possible resistance. We have the 50 week, we have the 100 week, we have the red 20 week. So if we get through there, we do have the 200. The 200 has shown resistance before. Okay. But when we got through the 318 or the 382, sorry, was the area resistance. So I'd wait to see what it does. Do we have? Let's take a look at the RSI. Are we showing any bit of bullish divergence? The RSI, kind of a double bottom there, very oversold. It does have room to run to the upside. Let's go to, this is the weekly now. The weekly RSI is looking strong. All right, so that's good. We're on the weekly here. I don't know if there's a better, older chart out there for Polygon, formerly Matic. The MACD on the weekly, that's been strong for a while. The daily here, it is ticking up. So yeah, this would tell me, at least as far as the daily ticking up now, that if we continue to be bullish, we'll challenge this 382 again. And if it can get above, stay above, I think that would bode well for you. So yeah, I don't know anything about the conversion or upgrade, and I don't want to miseducate you. So, DYOR, do your own research. But yeah, this is, I'll just say, my 2 cents. When I've seen coins go through name brand changes, that hasn't been a good thing. Pretty much 98% of the time. I believe there was once it's been like an okay thing. I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe it was Fetch. I think it was Fetch because we had Fetch.ai, which is now artificial super intelligence or whatever. It is a coin. This used to be, you see the ticker there, Fetch. So is Fetch.ai. I remember when this thing was on Coinbase. It still is. But when they had, I don't know if any of you guys been on Coinbase, where they have those little quizzes you can take where they give you like $10 of a certain crypto. This was one of those that I did way back when, and decided to buy some more later when we were in late 22, and it did very well for me. Okay. But then they did a merger or something, and it's still doing fine for all intents and purposes. But as far as Matic Polygon, name change, being under the 382 ascending channel, I do worry about it. You can say this is massive accumulation, higher lows. And, I'll also say this. This is going to be, for a lot of medium and small cap altcoins, you're going to find charts like this. And I cannot tell you whether or not they are going to break out. I simply can't. Being in crypto since 2017, I'll say at least for the top 100 altcoins, it's kind of like throwing darts, maybe a 50-50 or 30% chance of when you throw darts at these altcoins, if you're lucky, they could pop, but some of them don't. Some of them stay under the 382 and die forever. Okay. Just looking at Matic, I think there's another one. It kind of reminds me of ICP, Internet Computer. And my God, I mean, this one, where do I even draw this fib? I drew it from here. I don't know if that's good or accurate, but under the 382 bearish, is ICP dead? Just all I'm saying is be careful with these altcoins. They can continue to die. All right. Let's see. Charles would like to see Doge again. Let's just quickly run at Doge. Out of all the top large cap coins, I talked about this before, not Binance, so XRP, Binance, Solana, Tron, they were either at the all-time high door or above it. Doge and Cardano were the two large caps that weren't. Cardano is at its 0.5. Doge is at its 618. We were taking a look at price targets when I finished off that video. So let's put this back on log. And sorry, 1 second. Thought someone was at the door. So anyways, we're at the... Give me 1 minute. All right, I think I'm good. Sorry about that. Doge is right at that golden pocket, the macro 618. All right, let's go to the weekly. Let's go to the weekly here. And sorry about the delays there, guys. It is yet to get through the macro golden pocket. So Doge, Cardano, Cardano is down here. Doge is up here. Doge, we have these series of higher highs, higher lows. This is like, sometimes I'm a little bewildered by Doge. I'll be honest. Like, Elon's not as popular of a guy. The guy's clearly on a lot of ketamine. I don't know if you've seen the videos of him just kind of tweaking out. But when we zoom out here, okay, or take our fib off log, we see some of these fib extensions. Can Doge get the 90 cents? All right, can Doge get above 100 billion market cap? I don't know. It's, as far as, my predictions for this cycle, Doge this cycle, I think is the one I'm most worried about underperforming compared to the other ones, right? I've long said that. Maybe it's going to be Cardano this time around. Maybe all of them are going to do well. But Doge is one where, how high could it go? Will it randomly pump, to $200 billion market cap or something, be $1.85 or something? I don't know. But yeah, let's see. Jason shared a couple nice comments. Thank you. All right, I want to take a look at Chainlink. So Chainlink, as far as the large cap, it's right in that golden pocket area. And, why do I not have the golden pocket area in here for Chainlink? That is the 0.65. All right, let's turn the background down a little bit. And cool. So Chainlink, I've long made the argument that, this one, it's right outside, the true elite large caps. But I like the ceiling for this one. I think Chainlink has a lot of good things about it. As far as like actual research or, warning trigger word, it's utility. But being a 15 billion market cap altcoin, I truly think this one could do very well. Could Chainlink get up to 200? Can it do a 10x from here? Does that show anywhere on our fib targets? Could Chainlink do a 10x? Let's zoom down a little here. If it did around a 2x or a little underneath it, that's right where these fibs end. I don't know about you guys. If Chainlink ever got to the 3618 180, I'd be selling all my Chainlink by then. Just me personally. Can it get to 100, 130, do a 6x from here? That's about where the 2618 is. I'd say that's a very aggressive area. I would not be surprised to see most profit taking area at around that 130 6x area. Saw another comment, Jason. When taking profits on the way up on these small mid caps, if I don't want to chase the degen stuff, would you convert to another stable coin like USDC and wait to buy large caps post cycle? And then Van the Man wants a realistic bong top. Jason, I'm chewing on your question. on the small mid caps, if I don't want to chase the degen stuff, would you convert to a stable coin and wait to buy large caps post cycle? I'm not telling you what to do. All right. I'm just sharing with you what I do. You're talking about taking profits on the way up and converting to a stable coin. I mean, that's fine. That's fine to convert to stable coins. I think the part where I'm stalling a little bit is, those mid small caps are truly at the end of the cycle. Bitcoin is topped. We're having a rotation within the month after, and that's when you're going to see those small mid caps pumping. All right. The degenerate stuff way down the line. That's your Solana casino coins and other stuff. All right. So when those coins are pumping, we're pretty much at the end. Okay. Now, as far as converting to a stable coin and waiting to buy large caps post cycle, well, I mean, here we're on Chainlink. How long would you have to wait? Let's put in our Bitcoin and Ethereum chart. All right. We're going to look at this in two different ways, Bitcoin and ETH. All right. So we see where the Bitcoin top is. It's right here. We see where the ETH top is right here. All right. Yes, we had the double top for Bitcoin and ETH last cycle. We're going to go from here. Okay. And because ETH is right there with it, let's just go from Bitcoin and Chainlink. All right. So let's say you do pretty good at, medium cap, a small cap, getting somewhere near the top. All right. Let's go from the week after. How long did we take to bottom? That's about a year right there. But there wasn't really confirmation of a bottom till 400 days from that cycle top. All right. How did Chainlink, or, let's go to what's one that did good in 2017. Let's go to XRP. XRP was the darling altcoin in 2017. How long from the 2017 top? Again, this is just showing how these alts pump after Bitcoin. All right. And so, from the moment these alts top, we're on the weekly time frame now. All right. And I mean, the bottom was way out here, but whether you're buying at 30 cents or 16 cents, I mean, who's to say? But I'm going to even stretch it a week out. Here, that's 714 days. That's 2 years, 3 years. Can you wait 1 to 3 years? If we go to the crypto cycle, reflected by the rainbow chart. I mean, here's Bitcoin topping late 2017 and at a bottom early 2019. So it's just a little over a year. Again, here's the the Bitcoin top alt season in 21, April 21. Let's just say that. And here was late 22. So that's about a little over a year and a half. So I guess from what I'm seeing here, somewhere, 1 to 2 years would be an average time to wait. Maybe even Ethereum. I'm still chewing on your question, by the way. Just taking a look at that. Let's even add on. Tell you what, I think this might be a good indicator. Let's add on moving averages. Here's the monthly. So this was 2017, early 2018 top. Where did Ethereum bottom? All right, it bottomed around, we're just going rough range, a little over a year. Had that double bottom because COVID at 790 days, let's say 2 years. 1 to 2 years to where that bottom was. Now, alt season was back here in May, so we're going to draw from here. All right, ETH bottomed about a year and a half. We had that second bottom way out, but after a year and a half. So, maybe from the cycle top and when Bitcoin dominance tanks, that could be an area to look at getting back into your alts. And I think Bitcoin dominance is going to kind of reflect that too. That's a little under 2 years, a little over a year and a half. Here's where dominance was tanking, and that wasn't alt season. It was a little bit before. Sorry. I want to go to early May. From here to here, bottom to top, 1,500 days. But again, there was bottoms put in before. That's a tough question. I think every chart's different. It depends on the large caps that you are looking at and considering. But my 2 cents, I guess, to close out my answer to your question would be whatever large caps you would want to put the money back into, keep track of those charts and, maybe a little bit of diversification, but just keep track of those charts. And maybe between 1 to 2 years, you might catch a good bottom. We need bonk. I guess you could maybe be doing better things with your money than making your 4% on stable coins. Yeah, that as well, Jason. I think you said it right there. That's also true. I've seen a number of charts over the years that, if you're investing well with your money, or even just investing it overall, you can do better. And Bitcoin doesn't always top with the stock market. Let's even go to the stock market. This is going to be a little bit of a mess here because all the lines I have up. You ever wonder what these green lines are? Okay, this is just going from the beginning. We're on the monthly here. You know what those green lines are? Those are those Bitcoin cycle tops. All right, we have to zoom way in here. Okay. You can see that Bitcoin chart. This was the Bitcoin cycle top, 2011. We can go, let's zoom way out. All right, there's that cycle top, May of 2011, right? May, June 2011. See it right there. So all these green lines are the Bitcoin tops. But look what the stock market does. It's gone down, continues up. It's gone up a little bit and down, up overall. Okay, green line, stock market continue to go up. So wherever the next Bitcoin cycle top is, I think there are some stocks that can do well. But I would also, take a look at different stock rotations like post. Why can I not click on this? Post tech cycle tops or secular bull run tops. Healthcare, precious metals can still do good. So I'd research into some of that. You could always, take a look at bonds even or CDs, depending on the rates. So you could have your money work for you in better ways. I truly believe that. All right, Bonk Father. I'm sorry, Van the Man. Let's get to your question. Bonk. Let's take a look at Bonk. Let's see. Bonk is on, I don't know if you guys know this, one is on Robinhood. We're on the monthly. My God. Let's zoom this out a little bit. So remember what I was saying about the 382 high to low? Look where Bonk is. It's at its 382 and it is getting support. Let's take a look at some other indicators here. We're on the daily right now, getting good support at the 382. Now, it has a lot of resistance here. That trend line never really turned into anything. It has a lot of resistance in moving averages and the fib. The 0.5, these moving averages, running into resistance at the 20. Could Bonk come back down to, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 is 1878? That could be a buy order here. Look at all those wicks. On Robinhood or anywhere you can buy Bonk, you can set a buy order for 40 is 1880. Maybe it'll hit there again. Let's go to the weekly. Weekly looking bearish, but what do you see here from the bottom? All right, I'm seeing a series of higher lows and higher highs. And what's interesting to me about this, you've probably heard me say how Bonk and Pepe are the two coins that I could see replacing Shiba and Doge this cycle. Moosh Caution says Farcoin could be a winner. I'm not going to buy it, but for you, I hope so. And to be clear, it started to go on a side tangent. You know what? I'll save it, right? I get distracted too easily. Is this not kind of looking like the Doge chart a little bit? All right, let's compare the series of higher lows. I mean, that looks decently correlated to me. So if all of a sudden Doge starts taking off, could Bonk? Now Doge is at its 618. But if all of a sudden meme coins are running and we're truly bullish, these lower market cap ones, and I do think Bonk, it's above the 382. Let's add on the moving averages again. It's above the 382. It does have this resistance area, 4 zeros, 210 to that 0.5, the 2361 after 4 zeros. And again, I'm drawing the fib retracement from this high in November 24 to these lows in April. Okay, that 0.5 area to the 200 day moving average, 4 zeros, 217, 4 zeros, 2352. You get above that, I think you're very bullish. Now, it ran into resistance at 786, just like Doge did. But if this one takes off, good night. I think Bonk can do very well. Is this one still around 40 or 50? There you go. Number 64 altcoin, a $1.7 billion market cap. So a 10x would be $17 billion market cap. Can Bonk 10x? If we get a crazy euphoric alt season, my simple answer is yes. If it's one of the chosen ones, yeah, I think Bonk and Pepe will do stupid, funny things. They have my vote to replace. I don't see Doge doing as well as last cycle. I'm sorry, I don't. XRP was the darling in 2017. Doge was the darling in 2021. What's it going to be this cycle? What's going to be the darling altcoin this cycle? If it's a different one, my vote is right here, Solana. And I'm kind of hoping Chainlink. I could be wrong. I've seen a lot of buzz around SWI, but it's already pumped quite a bit. I don't know. AVAX, that has some backing to it. But SWI, AVAX, and Chainlink all have like similar kinds of buzz around them. So, take your pick. Mushkashin talking about Fartcoin. All right, let me get back to what I wanted to say to Mushkashin here. I need to find the chart or the graphic, and I will sometime later. It shows the difference between the number 110 altcoin. It shows the difference between being a long-term investor, scalper, a trader, all this and that. And in my opinion, altcoins like Fartcoin are not the long-term investment type of stuff. The technical analysis I do on this channel, I think, is more geared towards medium to long-term investing with stocks and cryptos. And part of the reason I made my channel, well, there's multiple reasons, but one of which is there is just too many crypto channels, pretty much all of them, only talk about pretty much these gambles and give technical analysis on trading. I am not a trader. I do not pretend to be a trader. I talk about market psychology. That's the name. And using fear and greed to our advantage. Trading works no matter what environment we are in. But I think with more of a patient perspective that I have, people who are a little older, want to be safe but aggressive with their money, maybe have some play money to work with, want to take a look at more of these top altcoins, Bitcoin mining stocks, and I think that suits more of the long-term investor style approach. I will try to find the graph I'm looking for, but if you go to Google Images, look up trader versus scalper versus long-term, you might find a graphic and it shows the pros and cons of it. I got to find this chart for you. But I say all this because, me analyzing Fartcoin, I don't think is going to be the same as, let's talk about Fartcoin for what it is. It's probably a trading coin. All right. It's not a long-term coin, in my opinion. I could be eating humble pie here, and that's fine. I'm simply not going to buy it. To be clear, I've charted it for you guys before. But like as far as this one, I don't see the long term in it. I really don't. Let's see. We have low to high, high to low, had that 0.5 pullback. But anyways, bias aside, let me give you a little bit of technical analysis. Again, to put a bow on it, I just want to be clear about that because I think as far as my analysis, long-term analysis, will probably start to fall short when it gets to more of the Solana casino coins. All right, that's all I'm saying. So I think the charts look very different and the approach is different. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Fartcoin is the next Doge. All right, maybe I'm an idiot. I am stupid about a lot of things. So, anyways, this fib, low to high, we're almost at a 382 pullback. Okay, we got to the 0.5 pullback before, hit support off the 382. All right, now we have this other fib, high to low from that big drop here, came back up to its 786 and is down to its micro 382. All right, so just taking a long-term approach, what do we know about the 382? Being above that is good. So if Fartcoin, can't believe I'm talking about this, if it can get above this gap here of this 236 to the 0.5, that's about 73 to 80 cents. If Fartcoin can get above that gap, I think that'll be bullish for it. It's got a lot of resistance, moving averages as well, but that looks like a nice gap to get above. Let's see. Doge rip because Elon promoted it. I do agree with that. You know, Elon, he used to be a more popular guy, especially with people leaning left. I'm not getting into politics on this channel. You guys subscribe to hear crypto stuff, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. You know, we have a wide range of audience. I want to respect everyone. But, you know, I think there was a lot more pro-left people who supported him. Needless to say, not as much anymore. And after he is ripping Trump and saying he's on the Epstein list, now people on the right probably hate him too. Now everyone outside of his cult, likes him. So, yeah, Elon, you know, that guy, I hope he quits ketamine because, man, he's looking spaced out. But now Elon looks like he's got bigger worries. Yeah, like, his ketamine addiction. By the way, I don't know if you watch South Park, but Randy overdosing on ketamine is pretty funny in the recent season. As mentioned as a joke, I don't think it makes much sense TA on memes. Yeah, I agree with you. You know, but hey, for the TAs that's there, if all of a sudden we're bullish from right now and Fartcoin does like a whatever, what was its market cap? You know, I'm not going to be mad at myself like I was for Doge. 10x would be what, 6.7 billion. Yeah, I'm just not touching it. I don't even know what websites to get it on or trading platforms. But yeah, that's what we'll leave Fartcoin with. Let's go to some of these other macro charts. I don't want to neglect these. Haven't talked about them in a while. Tether dominance. Someone earlier who was at Jason talking about converting. Watch this level for Tether, these lower lows, and it's right at the 100-month moving average. If Tether dominance is getting around 3.6, I think we could be seeing a Bitcoin top. All right, that's an area I'm looking for a possible Bitcoin top. And this is just me thinking out loud. You know, I've been talking a lot about 200K Bitcoin lately. When we look at Tether dominance, is there enough room here for Bitcoin to get to 200K? Is there enough room here by the time it gets here? Or will Bitcoin only get to 150K? In my opinion, I think you guys know what my answer is. I don't know if there's enough room here for 200K Bitcoin. I don't know. Let's take a look at Bitcoin on the chart. I mean, can it separate at a greater rate than it's falling? I mean, you see this move by Bitcoin now. Much Tether move down. Another big move. Yeah, I mean, right here, kind of flattened out, and that was a decently big move. Let's go to last cycle. I mean, these are big moves down by Tether. Let's go to the weekly. The weekly, I mean, look at how much Tether moved down. I mean, this is from October 2020. By the time we topped, that's like a 50% drop. Okay. These are big drops. So if Tether is only going to drop, another, and right now Bitcoin's at 120. If Tether is only going to drop another 15-20%, does that leave room for 200K Bitcoin if this is where Tether bottoms out? I don't think so. That's where I think that 150K Bitcoin comes in. Now, that structure of these lower lows would have to truly break, okay, with the 100-month moving average and this trend line. That would have to break. Can it break? Maybe. Could Tether get to 2.5%? I don't know. I'm thinking and questioning out loud. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But yeah, let's get rid of that. Let's go to, this is our phase 4 chart right here. And right now the phase 4 chart is, oh, look at that. We put on log, we're still above the 382. Is the 382 going to hold up our phase 4 chart? This is our phase 4 chart. Okay, everything outside the top 10, all season. Okay, this truly spikes as we are starting to get into phase 3 and especially phase 4. Let's see if the 382 can hold. I saw a comment. Need to catch up on South Park. This recent current season, it's not going to lie, pretty funny. And they had it was before it happened, but they had an episode making fun of Charlie Kirk. I was like, and I just started watching it this week. I had no idea about it. I was like, ooh, this kind of hits differently now. Jason says, maybe the older money's already wiser and into Bitcoin. I agree with that. I do agree with that. And, I think that's the total reason why this log regression chart works the way it does. As there's decreased volatility, older money wants to be safe, yet aggressive. And, Bitcoin isn't just buying at these lows and then selling at these highs. Bitcoin is also a hedge against inflation. So you are making money on Bitcoin, not just from how much it pumps, but by also how much the dollar is being devalued. And so our dollar is being worth 25% less, from back here, that already pumps our Bitcoin, where it is right now. So, yeah, I do think it is smart to increase your position into Bitcoin over time. It's a good hedge against inflation, especially if you can get near some of those lows. I did a video a couple weeks ago on Bitcoin, and, I just took a look at the monthly and said, you know what? 2017 or the pre-2017 cycle, it had a bottom at the 50-week. Post-2017 cycle, bottom at the 50-month moving average. The gold or the orange is 50-month. Then this current cycle got under the 50-month to the 100-month moving average. So I said, it would make sense if this next cycle bottom, we might get a bottom around 50 to 60K, and that might be the bottom area for Bitcoin. So 50 to 60K in my brain is the area I'm going to be looking for. It might be 55 to 75K. I don't know. But watch the monthly moving averages. And if we get under that 50-month moving average, as you've seen in the past, if we get to it or underneath it, it tends to be a very good discount area to buy, right? If you have a long-term approach like I do. Hard to say safe in crypto in the safe. Charles, I 100% agree with you. I'll say, crypto, it is not the largest part of my portfolio by any means. But it is fun. For me, the way I've made money off crypto, in 2017, 21, I look at it as, from what I understand of it, that I can make larger gains with some of this play money, a smaller portion of my portfolio, and then I can convert it into safer investments later. So, I can get a 20x, I can get a 5 to 10x in a really short period of time, and then roll that over into safer stocks that'll just, give me dividends or good money forever, right? That's why you see, some dividend stocks that I track or other good stocks. Pepsi. That's one I'm looking to get in at the bottoms of. Stanley Black & Decker. They own Milwaukee Tools. Companies that aren't going away, that have very good dividends. I think those are ones. 3M was able to dollar cost average the bottom of those, get good dividends from that. That's one of my bigger parts of my portfolio plays that I do. So after I make these large multiples of money, I like that money to work for me, or it's there for me when I need it. So the pump, Jason says, so the pump doesn't have to come from Tether stash, or I think you mean crash. Bitcoin is safe now, number 7 world asset. I mean, yeah, by market cap, it's right up there with your Amazons, your Metas, your Google. Crazy. Let's see. Safe right now. Yeah. I do think there's still room to go. I'll go back to the Schiller PE. I've been long saying, is this 1998? when we had the tariff pullback. You guys remember me saying this. Right now, it's kind of looking like it. And as I showed at the start of this video and the stock video I put out earlier, there was still 400 days and 25% up to the market top. And so, markets can be irrational longer. You can remain whatever. Do we have a year left in this market? With all the money being pumped. I saw something about Trump talking about tariff money being sent back to people in stimulus checks. I mean, if that happens, you guys remember what happened last time with stimulus checks. Last time we were doing massive QE, we had 2021 alt season. Wall Street bets, pump it up, all that nonsense. AMC, Nokia, people buying utter crap. So if all of a sudden we see, percent of stocks above their 200-day getting to 80, 90%, you see AMC pumping, Nokia, all this garbage, yeah, we're hitting euphoria. So if stimulus checks are coming up or out, I'm not saying they are, but that would be a sign that we are getting into euphoria. I do believe the top is within the next year. I'm kind of leaning towards, give or take around the next, 6 months or 3 to 6 months for crypto. So yeah, let's get into Bitcoin miners and then we'll close it out. Unless anyone has any other random questions, but let's just run through some Bitcoin miners. Start with the number one mining stock, Iron. Let's go to the weekly. Iron's, look at that. It's blowing through its 1618. The 1618 was nothing. So Iron is starting to take off. Remember what I've been saying about mining stocks? These top with Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's going to top in November, December, it makes sense that some of these miners are starting to rip faces off. So yeah, Iron, man, this one's rocketing. Riot and Mara, we can go right over to those. Riot, it is, I love how it's out of this downward channel. And it is right around, you see where this top was? It's right around where this sort of relief rally was to. Let's zoom in on that. This was to $20.60. And yeah, it got like a little bit above that. So I think that's very bullish. It's about to get into the golden pocket. So let's see what happens there with Riot. I truly think Riot can explode. I truly do. Yeah, some of these miners, they have topped again with Bitcoin. All right, let's get rid of our moving averages here. Let's add in Bitcoin. All right, let's get rid of that. So topping just before the Bitcoin top. All right, 2017, topping within a week of the Bitcoin top. I've said this a lot, guys, we have these phases. If our mining stocks can top with Bitcoin, there might still be time to get in on some of those alts if you get in the right ones. This is my plan. Not telling you what to do. This is the educated gambler in me. For my large cap miners, I'm just taking profits. I'll be happy. I'll be green this. I'm already green this cycle. I'm good. All right. I've been buying since the lows of 22. And doing just fine, right? Dollar cost average approach. I like buying dips, lower moving averages, fibs. You guys know how I do it. For the lower to mid market cap miners, I am converting those or rotating those into altcoins if they haven't run yet. And so if I can get, a 10x, 5 to 10x on a Bitfarms, a Hive, TeraWolf has almost already got me a 10x, and I convert that to an alt, which 5 or 10x's, that's how you get your 50 to 100x. Sounds crazy, but that's part of my plan. All right. Again, larger market cap altcoins and miners, I'm simply taking profits when it makes sense, where my targets are, and I'm happy, and I'm already green no matter what. But I also have even more of a educated gambling rotation play. If it fails, and I get nothing from it, that's fine. I'm not going to get nothing. I'm already very in the green from those. But if it doesn't get me, as much as I wish, that's okay. But anyways, yeah, Ride I think can do very well. And let's just for a moment, look at how Riot starts to really take off as Bitcoin is getting to its cycle top. I just heard a beep. I don't know what that was about. Look at how Riot's just exploding, right? Here was a false top, and when Riot was getting above it, look at that date, November of 2020. You know what's funny about that? Let me just go over to it real quick. Total 3, speaking of November 2020, look where Total 3 was when it was getting ready to break above former all-time highs and hit alt season, right? Early 21, but we were pretty close, all right? Maybe it's Bitcoin dominance, I think, might show it even more. 2020, November, dominance was close to topping and then rotating. Just saying. So I know the dates don't line up perfectly, but I think there's a lot to show us that, we're kind of knocking on the door of possibly going nuts soon. That's what I think. Let's go to Mara. Mara, as far as all altcoins, or not altcoins, sorry, mining stocks are concerned, again, topping just before, topping with Bitcoin. Again, altcoins top after. We can take this off. Good. Fine. Mara's been underperforming the most, but I think, we're in a little wedgie pattern right here. We have the 618, the descending channel. Mara's getting ready to pop out of this wedge, and then we have the golden pocket and channel. And I think Mara, if all of a sudden this explodes, could be doing very well. If it gets above its former all-time highs, we have that trend line that connects the tops, and we have the 1618 at around 132. I know it sounds crazy. Being in 2017 and 2021 gives me the consumer confidence that this can happen. Again, I'm not saying it will happen. There's no certainties, only probabilities, catchphrase that I'm sure you've heard before. But I have that consumer confidence from the last 2 cycles that if we get some sort of similar alt season, Bitcoin, 150K, 200K, whatever, that we could see a Mara $150. All right. If Mara gets above its 1618, I am definitely taking a lot of profits. All of them. I'm not going to wait for the 2618 personally. 150, probably the area where I sell everything. I'll look to sell depending on where Bitcoin is at this 1618. Should it get there? You never know. I will say this, caveat. Last cycle, there were altcoins that did not break their former all-time highs, that only stalled at their 786. So if Bitcoin's at 150 or 200K and your favorite large cap alt or miner is stuck around at 786, you may want to take a little bit of profits, at least get your initial investment, your return on initial investment, ROII. But yeah, let's see. No new comments. All right, let's keep going. We're going to finish with these. Cypher. Yes. I have some Cypher. Cypher doing well for me. This one was, I was feeling a little discouraged. Speaking of being a market psychologist, fear. When this thing was down here, I was like, oh, God. But, it's right at its former all-time highs. It's wicking above, and that's why we were taking a look at price targets. But, Cypher, how high could this one go? It has a $6 billion market cap. Can it get into the $20 billion area? And start doing a few multiples, like getting up to this 2618. There's a lot in the large caps and the miners that show me we may be knocking on the door of phase 3. The door isn't open yet, but I think we're knocking. We're knocking on it. The mining stocks top with Bitcoin, or within a week the top. The large caps, we looked at that metric in a video earlier this week. You'll see the thumbnail with this on it. Looked at it, started this video, rewind to hear me talk about it a little bit shorter. We are on the verge of large caps or entering phase 3. We're knocking. The door is not open yet. But yeah, Cypher doing very well. And I am happy where I got it. I almost have a 5X in Cypher. Yay. All right. Cores. I do not have any cores. I should have listened to my one very smart subscriber. We had a subscriber here. You guys are so smart. We had someone bring up cores back here. I listened the second time around when one of you recommended Hive and it was at a bottom. I am doing nicely with Hive. I think I have a 2X. I bought a little Hive, not a lot. If I would have listened to you on cores, I could have had a 5, 6X, but that's okay. Cores knocking on the door. Can it get to some of its fib extension levels? Draw your fib high to low, take your fib off log, okay, and then you can see some of those price targets. All right, here's your fib tool. Again, draw high to low. Our charts on log, take your fib off log. There's your price targets. All right, cores knocking on the door. We've been saying that a lot, knocking on the door. TeraWolf. This is one where I bought it when it was within that $1 range. So I'm liking my TeraWolf profits. Of course, it's got me a 10X or about a 10X. But still in this channel, this 786 in the channel area, this makes me nervous. I would be nervous of a pullback around here, but we'll see if we can get through. If TeraWolf can break up and through that. So, yeah, TeraWolf, last cycle, got to this high of around 43. Even from here, that's almost a 4X. So, yeah, hopefully we see good things for TeraWolf. Doesn't ETH need to do much better before phase 3? No, Mushkashin, and I'll show you why. Let's go to this. All right. Talked about this earlier in the video, but Ethereum, remember where it is when Bitcoin tops, okay? Let's go to 2017. We're on the weekly, but Ethereum, when Bitcoin topped, we have to go to the daily. I think the daily just shows it even better. Right now we're in phase 3. I showed you why in the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. ETH here, when Bitcoin topped in 2017, was $700. It got up to $1,400, almost a 2X from that top over the course of the next month. All right? So we're in phase 2, but when we get that phase 4, Ethereum still does well. Here was the alt season last cycle. Ethereum at around 2K. It got a little over 4K. Again, almost a 2X from Bitcoin topping. So Ethereum can still do a 2X from where it is right now until the time Bitcoin tops. Where will Bitcoin top? I don't know. But I present to you this. Oh my God, why are you doing that? Stupid thing. Not you, talking to the chart. I present to you this argument. If I just showed you that Ethereum can dang near do a 2X from Bitcoin's top, what price is Ethereum going to get to by the time Bitcoin tops? Is Bitcoin going to top? Let's say Bitcoin tops at 155K. All right, we'll take the lower end of that. Ethereum's right at the cusp of all-time highs. So Ethereum can get to, let's just say it'll be at all-time highs, 5K, and Bitcoin tops. All right? And then Ethereum does around a 2X, where would that put it? That would put Ethereum pretty close to its 2618. It would put it at around 10K. Now, I think Ethereum, it could get to 5,500 or 6,000 by the time Bitcoin tops. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. And so if it does dang near a 2X from Bitcoin's top, as we saw last 2 cycles, Ethereum can get up to that 10, 11K number. And I know that seems crazy. Ethereum has a market cap of $550 billion. A 2X from here is a $1.1 trillion market cap. All right. Let's go back to ETH Bitcoin. It is well within the metrics and range of this chart. Okay, when we're drawn high to low, Ethereum Bitcoin in these alt season cycles has gone from 0.3 to 0.5. Okay, 0.3 to 0.5. That's where we had alt season. Again, that is Ethereum being worth 50% of the market cap. Let's just take the middle. Let's say 40% of the market cap. That is 2/5. If Bitcoin is at 3 trillion market cap and 155K, what is 40% of 3 trillion? 1.2 trillion. We just talked about how 1.2 trillion is right between that 10 to 11K ETH, that 2618. I think it all lines up. I really do. If we get there. I'm not saying we will get there, but as far as I'm concerned, the metrics are showing, nothing's out of play. People saying there is no alt season. By the way, I love hearing that. When people out of nowhere come to my channel the first time, I'm not trying to be mean, but I want you to remove your bias and ego for a second, because I've fallen into this trap before. I've clicked off channels because their bias didn't agree with mine. So I'm not saying this in a mean way. But when people are saying, when dumb money and retail saying, oh, there's no alt season, I like hearing that, because isn't that what whales and large money want us to be saying? They want you guys to give up. They want retail interest dead, because they always lead the charge. They lead the charge, and retail dumb money follows. Take a look at any smart dumb money metric. That's what typically happens. So I do think Ethereum, during a phase 4, again, we're in phase 2, but Ethereum large caps, they really can take off and get their final euphoric blow off top into phase 4. So I hope that clears things up. Let's get into CleanSpark, CLSK. After I look at CleanSpark, I'll see if you left a comment. All right, CleanSpark, we have that descending channel. It broke out. Wonderful. Right above the golden pocket. Man, if CleanSpark, this was that top here in 2021. CleanSpark, man, we're knocking on the door, man. A lot of these miners, breaking out of descending channels, top large caps, right near all-time highs. If all of a sudden we're breaking out of these descending channels and ripping up past former all-time highs, I think a Bitcoin top is coming, all right? Maybe that's a couple months from now. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I'd be looking for. See what happens, so when we look at these levels, see what happens at their, horizontal trend lines, their horizontal fib lines of 786. Once we get above the 786, next it's the all-time high, and then we're on our way to a new cycle top, should CleanSpark be lucky enough. And, CleanSpark, it just being a little contrarian, this one's underperforming, your Wolf, your Cypher. CleanSpark was like the number 3 overall mining stock once, and then it's fallen down a little bit. This one and Mara still showing good value should they be ones to pump. Remember when Hut had their lawsuits going on a year or two ago? That was right around the time I started this channel. When it was falling off a cliff. Was it there? Was it here? I think it was I want to say it was somewhere back here. So Hut, it is right at its 786 and ascending channel. You break out of that ascending channel, man, Hut's going to be doing very well. But yeah, if you would have bought the FUD on Hut when they had the lawsuits, you could have gotten dang near 5x on Hut. Let's go to our 3 low cap ones, Bitfarms, BitDigital, and Hive. Again, if you are watching, one of you mentioned Cores, and then another person mentioned Hive right around here. Okay, I bought some Hive there when it was a little under $2. Thank you. I got a 2x. I appreciate you. This upper area of the channel and the 382, we have to get above the 382, but even there, then we have to channel. So it's a sort of a double whammy as far as resistance goes. Moving average wise, okay, we're above the 50 week. That's good. We could still reject, that's things have all of a sudden gotten very bullish with the government shutdown. Let's say unemployment numbers come out next week when the government reopens up, if they do. And that's sort of a bearish catalyst. Yeah, sure, you could see Hive down to the mid-high $2 area. That would seem to line up with a lot of the, we're bullish, we're knocking on the door. What if the government reopens, all of a sudden unemployment comes out and it's a bad number and we get a little bit of a pullback? Would that not surprise any of you? That wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, it's like anytime we get too bullish, I do get a little hesitant. Like, what's coming? Is Trump going to tweet something? It's so stupid. The market reacts so big. But that volatility. That's late cycle stuff, man. From what I know. So right at the 382, this channel. If all somewhere breaking above this at the 0.5, that's knocking on the door. Hive. Sorry, let me exit out. I mean, look at when Hive was breaking above that sort of bounce back here. Look where we were, November 2020. Okay, just a few months away from a top. So, is something similar going to play out? I do wonder, one of you mentioned in a comment recently that you believe Bitcoin and alt season could be March to May next year. The more I think about it, I don't know. You gave me a little bit of inception there. Like, I'm sort of a classical 4-year cyclist, but again, I don't try to get caught up in predictions and like it has to be a 4-year cycle. If we top 4-year cycle, fine. If it's March, fine. I don't care. But, let the data lead the way is my 2 cents. Let's take a look at Bit Digital and then we'll close with Bit Farms unless there's any more comments. Bit Digital still going sideways. I need to look at the news on Bit Digital. They were going to have a shareholder vote on whether or not they were going to do stock dilution. If they did that, that's not good, right? I don't know how much dilution, but I need to look at that. Right at the 200-week moving average accumulation area, right here around the 0.5, the 450 to 420 range, got to get out of that, all right? Get to the golden pocket. We are well on our way. Now, if you like Bit Digital, and there wasn't too bad a share dilution, between 260 and 190 would be the area to pick some up at a discount. And then let's take a look at Bit Farms. Bit Farms, man, this thing has rocketed up. Nice. So Bit Farms, from its macro 236, again, I love when the 3-2 and the 50-week are so close, because when you take it, look what happens, man. All of a sudden, explosive movements, running into resistance at the golden pocket, the 618 to the 6.5. So could we get a pullback? We've had prior tops here before for Bit Farms. We could get a pullback to, let's say bad news comes out and crypto has come back down to earth a little bit. If Bit Farms is one you don't want to miss, again, there's always plays out there. Be patient. Don't chase, please. If you get around $2 on a pullback, I think that'd be fine. But if it breaks out of here, we're gonna see some big levels. 786, of course. We're at that level again. We're knocking on the door for a lot of things. Should do a video title, knocking on the door. But I think it's good with all the bullish news with the government shutdown, which is just so ironic and funny. I think me putting out a video saying knock it on the door, that's like sort of a contrarian thing, indicator. Let's have the weekend. Weekends are oftentimes bearish, if a week's going to be bullish. And by the time I do a Bitcoin video on Monday, I think we'll have some clear answers on Monday. So, can we do a 5x from here? I believe so. Or an 8x? Why not? So, Bit Farms, 1.6 billion. Can it get to 15, 16 billion, 17 billion? I think so. That would be around the ceiling. If Bit Farms is somewhere above the 2618, the 3618, that's like my take profit no matter what area. And to be clear, I'm not trying to convince any of you not to sell, or to sell, not sell at certain levels. Some of these levels I say out loud, it can go higher. Some of these levels it might never get to. So we all have different plans. I'm not trying to steer any of you wrong. I'm trying to be conservatively aggressive. And, if I miss, like let's say I sell here, and I get a 10x, great. And let's say it does another 2x from there. Fine, whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. A 10x is a 10x. All right. So those are some things I'm looking at. So let's put our fib back on log. I notice this sometimes, speaking of, I'm retail. When we start taking our fibs off log, that is a sign to be wary of a local top. When I'm taking fibs off logs and looking at price targets because we're talking about breakouts, that's kind of a contrarian indicator that, what's going to happen? Is this truly, are we truly going to turn bullish, or, that could be a local top sign. So we have to be wary of our greed that's coming back in. Mushkashin says things are heating up. No question. One thing I'm worried about is some global escalation war. Otherwise, we're off to alt season. Yeah, Mushkashin, I share your sentiment. However, this is just me. Could that be a black swan thing? China, Taiwan, or Russia, the EU, the U.S. I think the U.S., they're talking about getting into it with Venezuela. I don't think that's going to be a macro bearish thing. If Taiwan were to happen, yeah. Or Europe, Russia going at it, yeah. And I'm not a, proponent of war at all, by the way. I've traveled a lot of this world, Asia, South Africa, Europe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people are the same everywhere I go. And it's a sad thing to me. I'm just speaking personally, authentically. It's a sad thing that with all our, advances in technology, that this is still a thing. But, greed drives a lot of this stuff, I think. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying other countries are perfect. But greed drives a lot of these things. And it's sad that normal people, middle, lower class, are the ones who suffer the most. So, yeah, I hope not. But, the other thing I'll say is, how long's Russia and Ukraine been at it? I feel like Russia and Ukraine have been at it this whole time. And so, if you are on that cesspool known as Twitter, now X, you would swear World War III starts and ends every couple months. All right? Every time World War III is trending, that's probably a dip to buy, to be honest, from what I've seen. So be wary of the narratives. I try to stay off the news. I do not watch any mainstream media, and I stay away from Twitter. And if anything comes up, like all of a sudden I have friends who lean far or more right, not far right, or my friends leaning far left are all of a sudden all sharing kind of the same thing, and it's very bearish. That's usually a local bottom indicator. So I hate to remove the humanity from it. That's just something I've noticed the longer I've been investing, is that, when my friends who lean more in one direction are posting bearish world-ending fears and things, tends to be around a local bottom. So, yeah, use your friends and family on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Use that as indicators too. Anyways, I think that does it for today's video. Thank you all for coming along, watching, commenting, liking, all those things. Mushkashin, Charles, Jason, Van the Man. Appreciate your comments. Hope you all are doing well. And I hope all of you have a fantastic weekend and that the weather is good for you. Get outside, get away from the charts, go on a hike, kayak, whatever, so you can think clearly. Especially if we're going to get into extreme greed soon, I want all of you to have a clear mind and not get sucked into that euphoria. Make sure you have a plan ready, because if we get into extreme greed, there's going to be some of you in the comments that aren't going to take profits where it's very obvious come hindsight time. Please be ready for that, okay? We're getting close to that time where it might be too late to be ready for it. Get your frontal lobe ready so your limbic system, all those emotional parts of your brain, aren't going to take over for your decision making, all right? Especially if you have a history of, trauma, or you're a more sensitive person. I don't say that in a mean way. This is just me speaking from my professional background. If you've had things like that and you can be a sensitive, emotional person, again, that's not a bad thing. You're just more aware to dangers in the world. You can also get sucked up into euphoria of the market. So have a plan now so your thinking brain can work for you and you can make money. I want all of you guys to make money because you are the best subscribers out there. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. But yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.